The future of funding is flexible, local, and ready. Hi, everyone. I'm back for another episode of Rad Solutions Lab. I'm Andreina Weichselbaumer, Senior Director of Strategy and Culture. This is a mini-series where we share innovative solutions that will spark change and transform the current state of the social impact sector. The solution and last solution that we're discussing today is culture shift. What needs to change in our ecosystem so that impact work can truly thrive? And I couldn't think of a better guest to explore this with than Leslie Lynn Smith, President and CEO of the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation. Leslie, you are a visionary strategist and a consensus builder who's worked across startups, philanthropy, and community development to advance economic justice, entrepreneurship, and social equity. And I'm really inspired by you as a powerhouse connector who believes in your research first, act local, and leave ready approach. And you've led bold initiatives like Get Cities, and you continue to push for these mindset shifts in philanthropy and in community building alike. And what I love and have experienced firsthand is you're helping organizations scale with integrity while also shifting the way that we think about partnerships and sustainable impact. So, Leslie, I first came to know of you through Get Cities 3 years ago, and it was an initiative focused on accelerating women and non-binary leaders in tech. And we at Radical Partners had the amazing privilege of collaborating with you and your team on the Miami launch of the Get Champions program. And what stood out to me wasn't just your leadership, but the way that you approached these big systemic challenges with this boldness and with so much care. It's one thing to talk about shifting culture, but it is another entirely to actually roll up your sleeves and build the partnerships and structures that make all of that possible. And I love that that is exactly what you do. Packaged perfect. Whether it's through Get Cities, your work now through the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation, or any of the communities that you touch. So that experience really gave me a front row seat to the way that you think about systems change and culture shift. And now that you're bringing that energy elsewhere during a more critical time for our sector, tell us a little bit more about where you are today in that work and what are the culture shifts that you are really focused on leading in your ecosystem right now?
Thank you, Dre. I'm so humbled and overwhelmed to have been able to experience that love letter that you just read to me. I am honored to be seen by you, someone who I have an equal amount of respect, faith, and admiration for. So you've overwhelmed me from the jump with that launch, and I'm extremely grateful for that. As you mentioned, I've recently moved to the Charlottesville community, where I'm leading the Regional Community Foundation. And I think it's really about all of the things you're talking about. How do we shift our behaviors and our mindsets from sort of a transactional perspective to a more transformational perspective? And how can we leverage our individual strengths for collective impact? And I do think it starts with some of that data that drives our decisions and anchors us in our purpose, and a lot of human connection and relationship development. So at the Community Foundation in Charlottesville, we're really focused on a regional solidarity strategy that responds to the inequities that continue to persist in our region and exclude particular populations from opportunity and safety and food access and economic opportunity. Um, and ensuring that we can leverage not only our own discretionary resources, but our donor advised resources in a way that really addresses those issues head on. One of the most critical areas of focus right now underway is around affordable housing and ensuring that the affordable housing available in the community is responsive and human centered and designed through resident engagement and is uh, sort of climate concerned and really positioning the community for the future of the world. And I think the way philanthropy can come together to really leverage other dollars into the reimagining of something that has always been done a particular way with a particular set of financing, to think about doing it in a different way with the residents' sort of needs and dreams and aspirations as a central driving point, and then leveraging the investment into those opportunities is really the way we expand and advance the social impact sector. And at the foundation, we're really delighted to play even a small role in that initiative here locally. We're looking at those types of opportunities across the entire region. What does it look like to build cooperative ownership models in access to grocery and child and elder care and other issues that are really, daunting in particular at this moment in time for folks. We launched this morning talking about the devastating shooting in Minneapolis. Gun violence and sort of a response to gun violence is another area of focus at the community foundation. And so, how do we build relationships to leverage the truth and the data that drives us toward, entirely upending systems and rebuilding them in a more loving and just way?
I love the way you framed that, Leslie. And um, you tackle so many issues and are so conscious of incorporating all of the other issues and having a real holistic approach. And what I enjoy about what you shared is that it really highlights how much of this comes down to how resources flow, where they come from, who they flow through, and who's also willing to take a chance on that change. And recognizing that you've worked with funders at so many different levels, from local foundations to national players to individual donors, I want to ask, if you had a room full of funders, which I know that you're working towards, what would you tell them to encourage this longer term investment and sponsorship in systemic change?
Yeah. I think one of the things that, as a practice, we've really been focused on is a more sort of trust-based orientation to the way our dollars flow, and allowing the voices of the community and those who are most impacted by the sort of opportunity space to inform the way those dollars flow. And I think that is a consistent and significant message that we have to share in every room we enter. While our efforts are really well intended, only those who are directly impacted are best situated to drive and guide those investments. And I think it's critical that we sort of situate them, not as an afterthought, but as critical co-creators in the solutions we seek to sort of fund and drive through our communities. And so I think that is the first thing I would invite sort of funders to think about. The other thing is to sort of move to the data. So I think, there are a lot of opportunity spaces where we have a deep interest or passion, and we'd like to sort of channel our dollars there. And that's certainly an appropriate way to sort of expand your philanthropic impact. I also think there's a way to be slightly more strategic and leveraged in the way we move our philanthropy that allows us to understand the thematic areas of opportunity that the data are suggesting are a great place to start to build vibrancy and vitality in our communities, and sort of trusting that data and sort of following that data, or sort of following the heat to that data, in order to sort of apply those dollars in the most critical places at the most critical times, would be sort of the second thing I would ask funders at a table. And then the third thing is, who's not in this room that you could bring into the fray to sort of leverage these investments and get more catalytic resources aligned for these opportunities, because there are often folks that aren't in the room that can have an expanded and exponential impact in the areas we're working together.
You're watching Radical Solutions Lab. Stick around, there's a lot more ahead.
We decided to have this series because we want to inspire more of us to have deeper, research-informed conversations that inspire change. We want to bring value to our friends new and old in our ecosystem, so we hope to keep having these conversations with you. Share your best practices and tips in the comments below. If you've learned something new, sharing that inspires others to do the same. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more conversations like this.
And we are back with Radical Solutions Lab.
I want to ask next, what do you think would be the most important consideration when you're trying to shift these mindsets for the collective good?
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing we know is it takes a bunch of practice to get to a place where we've actually shifted our behaviors, right? And so what we try to do is give people ample opportunities to practice that new way of doing things. And candidly, we've always adopted the strategy to sort of move first to the willing. So start with a group of folks that are already really aligned with the perspective and the opportunity of learning a new behavior and a willingness to sort of put their energy, resources, and influence behind those sort of behavioral changes. And it gets through those data points and sort of the proof that we can express around this changed behavior that allows us to move out there to that sort of movable middle where we have folks that sort of see that going on but aren't particularly sure if they're ready to move all the way to that sort of ring of the willing. We think through those examples and sort of practice where we don't, shame or blame each other if we fail or we get it wrong. We really just learn and keep iterating that we can move that sort of inner circle to that movable middle. And then we've really doubled our impact and our effort and our energy. And we've modeled a way for that behavior change to take hold and have invited a whole new sort of group of folks into the arena with us. And then we always talk about, like, what do we do with that sort of final ring, the ring of the resistant, right? And how do we encourage them to join us? And I think by the time you have sort of this momentum and these series of experiences that show that this new way of doing things really does work, and by expanding the opportunity for everyone in our community, we haven't diminished the opportunity or the space that those others in community held and continue to hold. We have a greater chance of sort of moving them into rally behind those behavior changes that we all know are going to create this sort of beautiful, thriving, and inclusive world that we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I love where this conversation is going and how we're mentioning failure friendliness. Like there's nothing more catalytic to innovation and to just creating spaces where folks can feel like truly authentic and human than creating spaces that are really failure friendly allow for. And of course that brings us into so much wisdom also. So much wisdom comes from actually doing the work, from experimenting, from learning, from adapting, just like how you were saying. And as we begin to wrap up, I think it's really grounding for leaders who are listening, whether they're in the philanthropy sector or running local organizations. Let's make this really tangible for them. If someone wanted to start shifting culture in their own work tomorrow, what are
Yeah.
1 to 3 practical tips that you could give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is to change the way we behave and become models for that change, right? So when we ourselves understand the data that's driving that behavior change and the reasons to adopt that change, simply by adopting it, we become a model and a sort of lever of change. I think the next thing we can do is actually share the reasons to change with those around us, right? And activate agency and autonomy that allows them to try those things without fear or sort of the risk of loss. And the comment you made about failure, I think, is really important. Those of us that are modeling innovation or trying new behaviors or new ways of solving old problems have to be willing to sort of fail. Otherwise, our innovations will be too small to actually address the issue. So I really want to double down on the notion that you picked up on around failure. And I think the third thing is something that we don't do a lot because we're so busy moving on to the next behavior change, which is to celebrate the wins. Even the small wins can really aggregate to the energy and momentum we need to have the courage to keep trying those new things as we're moving along.
Yeah, I wish that for everyone listening, just to take that bold step and share it with others as well.
Yeah.
Leslie, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us today. What I'm taking away is that real culture shift isn't just about, just like you said, new programs or quick fixes. It's about really rethinking how resources are moving, challenging the mindsets that are holding us back, and centering power of local communities to lead, like really bringing them to the table, creating a space where a table is built together, rather.
Yeah.
Um, So you reminded us that the systemic change takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of patience, but it really is possible when funders, leaders, organizations, when we all come together to partner differently, equitably, boldly. So thank you for always making an invitation for that.
Yes, and thank you for having me today. It's always a joy to be with you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Please subscribe to our channel, and you can follow us by looking in the show notes for our social media handles and subscribing to our newsletter. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep pushing for bold solutions and culture shifts that matter.